What is the most unexplainable thing that ever happened to you? I've posted this before. 2 days after one of my closest, dearest friends died, we were semi-expecting it after he was in a terrible accident. I fell asleep in the library at school. This was after a horrific couple of days trying to process everything and function normally. I was massively sleep deprived. I placed my head in my arms on the library desk and I woke up and there he was beside me. It was a scenario that had happened so many times, us revising and hanging out in the library together, whispered jokes and banter, that it didn't feel strange at all. We stood up and wandered around, watched one librarian putting books away on shelves. There was a girl reading a book sat on the floor with sickly bright yellow socks. My friend made some silly dad joke about them being too loud for the library. We chatted in low voices, about nothing much, the usual chit-chat, and then went back to the desks. I woke up and he was gone. Of course, I was startled but weirdly euphoric. I went over the same set of shelves and had déjà vu, saw the same librarian putting away the books and the same girl with the yellow socks still there sat on the floor reading. I swear to this day I hadn't seen them before I went to sleep. I like to think it was his way of saying goodbye. It helped me immensely, even though I know it was probably just a dream. But the socks thing has always stuck with me, and anytime I see a pair of loud yellow socks, not very often, I think of him and our final chat. A really strong feeling kept me out of a high-rise building during an earthquake. I was staying late at work with some colleagues. Our office was located around the 40-50th floor of the building. I suddenly had a really strong thought that wow, if an earthquake were to hit now, the dash downstairs would be chaotic. I tried to brush it off but couldn't, the feeling was so strong. And it's not like I'm not used to working in high-rise buildings. I've been working at the place for around 2 years at that point and had never felt that way before or since. I decided to leave and work from home, which was only 15 minutes away on foot. Just as I arrived at home, an earthquake struck. It was pretty intense, and thankfully everyone at the office was all right, just freaked out, but it was so strange that something just told me to leave just minutes before it happened. I had a living room in my parents' 2-story house that connected to stairs leading to the second floor of the house. You could see completely down the hall on the second floor from the couch in the living room. One time my family went away on vacation, so I had my cousin come over while I house sat for them. I'd been alone in this house for a couple of days now and I just really wanted company. We're sitting on this couch playing Xbox, or something. The stairs leading to the second floor are almost out of my vision. At the very top of the stairs on the left is a doorway leading to a bathroom and nothing else. We were up pretty late gaming when out of the corner of my eye I saw a gray face lean out and stare at me for a split second. I didn't budge, I just barely noticed it, but as soon as I did, it was gone. I hadn't snapped to look at it, nor did I say anything. I just continued gaming for about 3 seconds until my cousin said, "Did you just see that?" As soon as our eyes connected we both knew we saw the same thing. The second my cousin said that, I felt my heart sink. It scared the shit out of me to have him pretty much confirm what I saw, but brushed off. I had immediately assumed it was just one of those blurs, or darting shadows you get in the corner of your eyes at times. The creepiest part is that it slid out as if it were lying on the floor. Whatever it was, its head was at level with the top of the steps right at the bottom of the bathroom door frame. It just sorta slid out, stared, then slid back. Again, I just saw it from the corner of my eyes, but it appeared to be gray-skinned with black hair from our combined description. We went upstairs and checked the whole bathroom, including the insides of luggage bags in the closet. We never found anything. When I was about 11 we took in a dog for somebody who was very old. He wasn't in great health anymore, but we were supposed to be his final happy home, since we lived out in the middle of nowhere. We had him for about a year when one night I just randomly decided to go outside to sit with him and pet him. I sat outside and laid down on him. He was a big dog, for probably an hour even though it was a pretty chilly winter night. Before anybody thinks we were leaving him out in crazy cold temperatures, he refused to go indoors, and we kept a space heater in a sheltered area he would lay down in. I don't know what possessed me to say it, but I gave him a big hug right before I went inside and told him it was okay to go. The next morning, my mom woke me up to tell me that he had passed away in the night. I helped her move his body to somewhere not out in the middle of the open so the owner could come say their final goodbye, and that was it. Honestly, I still don't understand how I knew, but I think I just empathized with his pain and told him it was okay to let go and not have to keep living for us. 15 years old, I was taking a shower at home. The rest of my family was out and it was around 9:30 at night, I believe. Anyway, I hear someone knock on the bathroom door while I'm showering, so I call out I'll be out in a sec. Thinking it's just my dad or one of my brothers getting home. There was silence for a few moments, and then knocking again, only this time it was pounding, like someone was nanging on it with their fists, trying to break it down barehanded. It was a little creepy, but my dad always loved to prank us, so I didn't think too much of it. I decided to get a towel around me and see what the hell his problem was anyway, but when I opened the door, no one was there. The house was locked up, no open windows. No cars in the driveway. I checked every floor, every room. No one else was home. That was the first occurrence. The weird happenings continued in smaller ways until we moved out of that house, to the point that we imagined it to be some sort of poltergeist and named them Edgar Smiling Face with open mouth and cold sweat. Edit, typos. Years ago, my buddy and a friend of his are out in the boonies, lighting off fireworks for the 4th of July. We go out to the cars to light the stick for igniting the fireworks. As my buddy's buddy is in the car doing so, I look up at all the stars, completely unused to seeing so many. As I'm looking, something just feels off. I finally pinpoint it and start squinting my eyes, looking away and back, everything I can think of to make sure that I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing. It's one point of light absolutely identical to the stars around it, except for one weirdness: it's doing a steady, repeating figure 8. I turn to my buddy to ask him about it and I see him staring at the same area of sky, so I ask him, "Do you see what I see?" I hadn't said a word about what I saw, but he answered back, "A star doing a figure 8. I've tried to explain it by any logical means over the years, but nothing quite matches up, and I refuse to accept that a figure 8 in space is the alien teenager version of doing donuts in a parking lot. When I was 9 years old, my best friend and I were crossing a busy street on the way home from school. Normally we were careful, but I was distracted by a black cat following us down the road. We stopped and she bent down to pat him while I turned around to cross the street, not thinking to look both ways. A silver car was directly to my right, about to hit me. I froze up, like a deer in headlights. My friend was screaming. Then suddenly it was on my left. It didn't swerve, wasn't in another lane, the car was just suddenly on my other side, speeding away. I ran across the rest of the road and my friend asked how I had passed through the car. Everything looked a bit strange, her shape was fuzzy and doubled. It was a clear day and the sun was shining, even though it had been overcast and windy on the other side of the road. When I glanced back, the black cat was staring at me from the other side. Then he just strolled away. I know it was just an optical illusion and I had probably just missed the car by a fraction of a second, and was just rattled later. I thought about it for years afterwards though. I was outside talking to my neighbor. Suddenly it was like someone accidentally flicked the lights off and then back on. It was dark in the middle of the day as far as I could see for just a split second. I thought it was just my brain, but then I saw my neighbor looked confused as well. Then her daughter said, "What just happened?" We all were looking in opposite directions, so it was just suddenly dark everywhere. We still talk about it sometimes. No idea what it was. I've spent hours on the internet trying to find answers with no success. Edit, it was not an eclipse. Don't you think I would have discovered that online? Also, it wasn't anything like an eclipse. This lasted like a blink of an eye. Others are saying it was a plane's shadow, which is really what I thought too, but when I looked it up online I learned a lot about it. Planes fly too high to leave a shadow, most of the time. I'm not saying it's impossible that it was a plane, but I looked into it extensively at the time and came to the conclusion that it wasn't. It was too long ago now for me to remember everything clearly enough, or even how I came to that conclusion. I am a very scientific person. I've been literally trained in how to research, and I don't believe in anything remotely supernatural. I'm just telling you what I experienced, and that I didn't find a conclusion. My husband worked for a small old folks' home. They only had 3 residents and his aunt ran the place. I had college classes nearby and would often come hang out for a few hours at the end of his shift and visit with the residents. One night my husband got the residents to bed and went downstairs to collect his paycheck while I turned off lights. As I reached the top of the stairs, I turned to look into the hallway leading to the residents' rooms. Standing outside the room of one of the residents was a woman. She was wearing an old pale green Victorian-style dress, and had her ear pressed to the door. I opened my mouth to say something, and she looked directly at me, put a finger to her lips and shushed me. I turned and practically fell down the stairs. When I got to the owner's office, she took in the expression on my face and said, "You saw the woman in green?" Not a question. I confirmed, and she asked whose room she was interested in. When I told her, she nodded and sighed. The next morning, the owner called us to let us know that the target resident was found comatose in her bed. She passed away later that day. One night, when I was about 16 years old, I swear I glitched into the Matrix or something. I'd finally decided to get off my computer and go to bed, around 2 a.m. if memory serves me correctly. At that time my family and I lived in a decently sized 2-story house. The staircase to the second floor was pretty basic: head up a few steps, turn on a landing halfway up, traverse the remaining few steps, and at the top you're only a couple of footfalls from my bedroom door. Someone please explain to me, then, how I got lost on this fucking staircase. Sure, it was dark, but even then you'd have to be a special kind of stupid to not know how to walk up these stairs after you've already done it 1,000 times before. Just keep one hand on the railing and you don't need to use your eyes. I swear that as soon as I reached the landing I spent 10 minutes just continually walking upwards. Realistically it only takes someone 5 to 7 seconds to walk up these stairs, 3 if they're running or skipping steps. I realized I'd been walking for much longer than that, stopped, and immediately felt uneasy. I'd walked up those stairs in pitch black darkness so many times before, but even with my hand on the railing I was getting nowhere, just endlessly walking upwards. My fucking skin crawled. If my brother hadn't turned on the upstairs hallway light, I'm not sure I would have made it to my bedroom. Guy blinked sleepily at me and asked me if I was okay, and all I could say was, I legitimately have no idea. Told him the next day what had happened and he told me that the reason he'd come out of his room in the first place was because he'd heard footsteps on the stairs for several minutes. What the fuck, man? What was that? I wasn't so tired that I just mindlessly walked up and down the stairs for a while. I was completely awake, and not once did it suddenly feel like I'd turned around to walk back downstairs at any time. I still get chills thinking about it. Edit, holy crap, I did not expect my most popular comment to be about that one time that I forgot how to walk up some fucking stairs. I'm glad I posted it, though. Not only has it been an entertaining discussion, but I've actually learned a few things about the fickleness of the human brain as well. You know, assuming this wasn't in fact the otherworldly work of some shithead fairy. I'm doing my best to keep up with the comments, but I won't be able to address them all, unfortunately. As for those who've gifted me awards for this comment, Thank you. Never thought that'd happen to me for this story, lol. Also, props to the many House of Leaves comments and references. I think I may go and read that book now, haha. 2 days ago, I'm working as a night receptionist in a hotel. A guy came in asking for a room, neat guy, my height and size, wearing a three-piece suit, well-shaved and freshly cut hair. The dude seems pretty pissed but nothing out of the ordinary. It's 4 a.m. on a Saturday. Something in me just flipped. Every single cell of my body was screaming to me that this guy was absolutely dangerous and I was terrified. I'm 1.75 m and 150 kilograms, I'm often the kind that would make you uncomfortable with my big beard. My hands were shaking, there was a voice in my head telling me don't let that man come near you or stay in the hotel at all, make him leave now, emergency mode activated. I bullshitted my way around telling me we had no spare room for the night, due to an event happening near. The guy was pissed, he told me his wife threw him out, that he didn't have anywhere to go, and that he was dead drunk. Brain just said if you let him in, he will either kill himself in the room or put everything on fire. I managed to discourage him from insisting on staying, but wouldn't take my advice to call the police to help him this night, and I didn't insist. I feel a bit bad that he left in his state, but this was the first time I felt sheer terror at the sight of someone. It was totally unexplainable. I was at my parents' staying over for the weekend, and woke up in the morning with the desire to creep on old classmates on FB. There was a girl I kind of liked in band class who was a grade under me who my brother's friends knew, but I never talked to her. I decided to look her up in addition to others on FB to see what she was like now several years on. We graduated from a large high school in suburbs and I hadn't thought of her much since I graduated. A few minutes after seeing her page, the phone at my parents' house rings. I lazily walk over to their phone to see if my parents or brother were phoning. I pick it up and check the caller ID, and in horror I freeze as I read her name on the display. Immediately I begin to think I've done something in error unbeknownst to me while on her FB page, which alerted her to my creeping and has triggered her call. I cannot answer it. I verify the number on the caller ID with FB to see it is indeed her and sit in shock, dumbstruck about how this unlikely event occurred and wondering the reason for it. My brother arrived at my parents a little later and I told him who called. He actually had her number on his cell and he sends her a text asking why she called my parents' place. She responds back that she didn't place a call but that it was just an accidental butt dial. Weird. I don't believe in the supernatural or the afterlife, but this one incident I truly cannot explain or brush off as a coincidence. A few years back, schoolmate of mine committed suicide. On the evening that he did, I was at home playing computer games on my couch and feeling tired I took a nap. Had a dream of said schoolmate talking to me and being friendly, him saying how he's seen me around in school but never spoken to me before. I wasn't friends with him, have never spoken a single word to him, and there were about 400 plus other students in my school, so his appearance in my dream is odd to say the least. Anyways, woke up, didn't think much of the dream and went back to playing my game. Fast forward to the next day, was at recess when I heard from a group of friends that John had committed suicide yesterday. As it was quite crowded and noisy at the canteen, I misheard the name as Ethan, example names, but point is the actual name vs what I misheard was quite different. This confused me because I didn't think there was an Ethan in our school. And yet, though I had misheard the name, first person that came to my mind was John. Yes, I did have a dream about him the day before, but I hadn't thought much of it and by this point had mostly forgotten about the dream. My friend then corrected me, and instantly I felt the goosebumps on my skin. Found out later that John had committed suicide in the evening, around the time that I was taking my power nap. This dream was the only interaction I've ever had with him.